I knew I didn't want to be in this relationship, but he was so head over heels in love with me, and he was so romantic, and I didn't realize how needy I was for that attention, and I didn't know how to say no to it. The more romantic and more attention he gave to me, the less I really was attracted to him, but then the more guilty I felt because I wanted the attention. So it was this, I couldn't get out of this situation.
People who wind up in a relationship ordinarily shake down into the roles of performer and audience. The performer and audience roles are deliberately configured, however, to keep intimacy at bay.
We're talking about the song and dance routine, and that's the behaviors that keep the people together, but we realized we wanted to understand what was going on the level of brain science. So we came up with this concept called brain lock. And brain lock is about how hormones like oxytocin and vasopressin that have to do with bonding, hormones like glutamate and dopamine that have to do with reward and excitement, serotonin that has to do with sexuality and other appetites, and adrenaline that has to do with fear are operating on the level of brain networks to hold people together into their song and dance routine. So that's what we call brain lock.
What this might look like on the ground is that two people in a relationship wind up in different positions on the graph scale. For instance, somebody, the performer, might wind up in the position of good, playing the rescuer and trying to rescue or fix his partner. Meanwhile, the partner may wind up trying to caretake the performer by acting as if whatever performance, whatever care, is actually effective. Meanwhile, each one of them is not only not showing up for the intimate, empathic, and invested, vulnerable part of the relationship, they're also really scooting out the door.
That sort of describes how I was. I was so uptight in this relationship. I always felt responsible for him. He came to live with me. We had an apartment together, and I had a job away from New York for a month. While I was there, he set up the apartment. I didn't have any furniture. He bought furniture for the apartment. He came to meet me at the airport with a stretch limo and with roses, and I just kept taking this attention and then feeling guilty and trying to take care of him in the situation. So it just never, I never felt like I could leave this relationship.
I was working with a couple we can call Sam and Claire, and they came in with a profound and powerful relationship song and dance routine. Sam kept going on and on and on about all that he had done for Claire, all the fact that he had paid for this and paid for that, the fact that he was paying for therapy, the fact that he had this great job. And meanwhile, Claire was sitting back and sort of nodding her head as if the rescue operation that Sam was playing in their everyday life was actually working. And Sam kept going on, and it basically became a moment where I felt like he was trying to convince me. And at one point I stomped my feet and I said to him, "Sam, stop being so selfish. By not allowing Claire to contribute to the relationship, you are not allowing her to feel any value whatsoever." And at that moment, they both stopped, looked at me like I was crazy, and started to acknowledge how much they had missed each other in this routine.
And when Mark told Sam to stop being so selfish, not only was Sam busted, but Claire was busted too. Both of them were forced to realize that not only was Sam deliberately overwhelming Claire with his caregiving, but Claire was deliberately allowing Sam to just give and give and give because it left her off the hook for having to do any giving to Sam.
Well, when I hear about Sam and Claire, it's easy for me to understand why anyone would want to do this really difficult work of coming out of your relationship, breaking out of their isolation, learning how to experience mutuality with another person for the first time, the way we can help people learn how to do it. Because the alternative is the ongoing pain of isolation and missing the other person when they're right there with you.
I remember they were talking in the book about how we get into these relationships, we know something's missing, and certainly I felt that all through that relationship. But because of whatever the traumatic experiences were from my childhood, it set this network of responding to things in a way that I couldn't help but respond to his attention and respond to his romantic, elaborate ways of showing me how much he loved him. I didn't know that I was responding automatically to that.
When Sam and Claire moved into the Toward Positive Change exercises, what the exercises did was encourage them to identify, to pinpoint exactly what things were wrong in their relationship, And they had been so highly invested in maintaining their status quo that this was a real challenge.
What they came to discover was that the song and dance routine that made it look for such a long time like Sam was doing all the rescuing actually wound up being a song and dance routine where Claire was doing just as much rescuing of Sam by allowing him to feel like an effective caregiver. In fact, she wound up having even more power because she didn't have to show up to the relationship at all.
I was really moved by how close Sam and Claire got just from doing that simple exercise. And not only that, how close they got to each other, but how they were able to make the connections with their different childhood experiences and how much that helped them understand what was happening in the present.
Because I had a distant father, a controlling father, there was also a lot of violence, violent arguments between my parents, that I was always trying to fix that. So I became a performer. And you talk about that in the book, about the performer and the audience. I definitely was the performer. I was always proud of the fact that I felt like I could figure out my parents' problems. I mean, that was something I felt good about. And so I think I always felt that I could help other people. I could figure out their problems. I would make a great psychologist, but didn't pursue that.